Michael, thank you for coming on the podcast. Great to have you on today.
Thanks for having me. Good to chat today.
Well, look for people that don't know you yet, who are you and what does Maev do?
Yeah, well, my name's Michael Campi. I'm the SVP of Marketing at Maev. Maev is a premium human grade raw dog food, built very much being D2C first, deeply mission and founder driven. And in the industry, where a lot of brands do a lot of the same things, Maev is trying to be very distinct and unique in the market. So if you stumble across the website, you'll see we try to look very different than other brands in the pet space.
Lovely, lovely, and a very competitive space. But the topic of this podcast is something I'm really excited to speak about. It's hiring for mindset. Now, you've grown 5x in 3 years, the 3 years that you've been at Maev. And astonishingly, you've not lost anyone along the way. Now, most teams definitely cannot say that. What's the secret, Michael?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about this as well. Um, it's yeah, as I've grown in my career, the emphasis on building effective teams has become so important to me, and I see the direct connection between that and the growth of a business. And so, yeah, I take hiring and team building very seriously. And yeah, we've got when I joined, the team had just two people. And now we're close to 12 people. And yes, haven't lost people along the way. And ultimately, I think what I've learned in my experience in growth stage companies is that never hire for static roles.
Hmm.
You want to hire with people with what is coined a growth mindset. And what the benefit of that is that people will grow with the company and they can adapt to the changing demands or requirements of a role as the company grows. Because in a business like Mave, growth is it's inevitable and
Hmm.
expected. And so with that, you need in your team, you also need to see them wanting to grow and develop in their own domain as well too.
Okay. Well, look, I know we're going to go into more detail around your thoughts hiring for mindset. Before we get there, though, I just wanted to touch upon your sort of story into Maeve. When you first got there, what were the first problems that you had to solve when you arrived?
Yeah, in an early growth stage company, there's a lot of momentum, and so one of the biggest things that I felt needed to be done was to take a moment and establish more focus and priorities for the team. The team was doing a lot of different things, but ultimately we needed to, as a founder-led company, we needed to take what was most important to the founder and the true DNA of the business, and then create repeatable systems within marketing to do that and help the team be more focused, having more focus on priorities, more focus on execution, but also the key is not slowing down momentum and growth in the process. And so it was really truly how I think about it is we just slowed down, did two to three things really well, stopped doing a bunch of other things, which allowed us to know exactly then how does that manifest into what direction the team should go, what roles would be required. And that's really some of the first problems I encountered was really just driving focus and priorities for the team.
Okay. Out of interest, at that stage of the journey, um, were there any particular channels that you found were real sort of growth drivers that you had to hire in for?
To hire in for. With one of the magic things about a brand that's so unique and different is that customers who find it, they love talking about it. And so
Hmm.
one of the most important ways that people were learning about the brand and wanting to try the brand was just through other customers. And so one of the biggest focuses we put on the team was how can we continue to maximize customer experience, satisfaction, product delivery, continue to make the product better because we knew that for the foreseeable future, that was going to be a key way we were going to continue to grow the business. And so, one of the first areas we uh, built out the team more was just around making sure that the brand, what the brand wanted to express was being manifested with consumers, that we were filling the promises that we were telling consumers in the process. And so that was a key focus. So that kind of came to life through getting our team more integrated across the company. So getting more
Mhm.
integrated with customer experience, product development, and then the marketing communication side of things.
So when you sort of say hiring or hire for mindset, in your opinion, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that it's more when I'm looking for people on my team, I'm looking a lot more about how people think and react to feedback, ask for feedback, um, not just grading people on what they've done in the past or where they've been, more about how they managed through the environment they were in that moment to get something accomplished. Because we all know that no playbook is the same across companies, different team, different people's, different business stage. Trying to find adaptability and how they're thinking and being adaptable is one of the most important things to me when I think about hiring for mindset.
Okay. I mean, it's really topical. We're speaking about this, and today, especially just earlier on, I came across a LinkedIn post from a I think she was a brand marketer maybe in the UK, and she was talking about how she's having a tough time, like a lot of candidates out there, um, because a lot of brands are really looking specifically for those just with industry experience and are kind
Mhm.
of very narrow-minded and closed off to others from outside of their space or business model. One of the things I've kind of tried to get my head around as to why a D2C company, for example, might only want individuals from D2C is that, look, we're in a tough time, right? The last couple of years has been difficult, and there's less margin for error than perhaps there used to be. For companies, and I know you hire for mindset, so perhaps it's not the same, but for companies that are very narrow-minded, do you think that's why they want people to come from the same space or industry, or do you think there's another reason why?
Yeah, well, that's more, yeah, to your point, that's more about, what they've done, where they've
Mm,
been. Doesn't really speak to like adaptability or the comfort around ambiguity that they may have in their role, the speed in which they're learning and then implementing what they're learning, ownership bias too.
mhm.
People who really feel like they want to come in and own something. I never worked in the pet industry before I worked at Maev. I don't think I don't think that harmed me in any way, other than the fact that I didn't have like the people network in the pet industry, but ultimately, and that can be built because of the mindset I have. I want to build that network, and so I do it. Um, and so when companies are looking for people with specific experiences, sometimes there can be the concept of that's a shortcut because they've done it somewhere else, they can do it here.
Yeah.
And in my experience, those candidates are less likely to be successful than if you stack them next to the person who hadn't worked in the pen industry, but did demonstrate, that they can work, through ambiguous situations, or they're taking feedback along the way, and they want to see the success of something. You stack those two together, the likelihood of the person with the growth mindset to be successful is substantially higher than the person who just has the specific check marks of of experience. Check marks for experience can help when you just are weeding through a ton of people out there.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to know like what is and what isn't important when you're setting up a role. But ultimately, that's really just getting you to a group of people to meet with. It's not necessarily, and it's not, there's no decision making in my head after that point. A great example is we were looking for someone with a pet experience because the brand launched on Chewy last January or January of 2025. Um, Grew really rapidly. We needed a technical expert who understood Chewy. Inherently, that means they have pet
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
We still, with that role specifically, like my questions were not about pet experience, Chewy technical details. It was how have they taken a strategy and implemented it in, in a new environment, or when have they received feedback that changed the way they were thinking about something. When is the time they got a very confusing task assigned to them and they had to create definition around it? All those things were more important than just the fact that they had worked in the pet industry before.
And whether it's pet or another D2C subcategory, health, wellness, food and drink, whatever, um, do you feel there are particular mindsets that kind of matter most when you're in that sort of growth stage?
Yeah, I think comfort with ambiguity is like the number one thing I always tell people because when you're coming into a role and you're kind of going into the unknown. If I joined a company as a marketing functional leader, a lot of the process and things in marketing are undefined. And then I try to define those, and then I hire like this example, hiring the person to run our Chewy business. He comes in, he says, "Wow, this is kind of a mess. I need to like create process here." And as you go down, every time whenever you join a growth stage company, unless that the role existed before and it's a backfill, mostly it's a net new position to the company. There really is a lack of clarity, and it's kind of like taking the founder says we want to grow, from 0 to 100 million, and these are the guardrails we want. And then the marketing team says, well, we need to grow awareness and get our marketing efficiency of these goals. And then you take it down to like a social media manager. Well, it's engagement. So it's all cascading down from a key goal. But the reality is like you're coming in and there's nothing defined. And so I think ambiguity is extremely important. I look for that a lot when I interview people dealing with ambiguity. The willingness to evolve as the role changes, that's inevitable in these types of roles. And the last one, which I think is the most important, which is a bias towards learning. And the thing about that is that you have to come in and realize, like, I don't know everything and I need to learn the right way to do things here. And sometimes people view being a learner or asking questions is about like protecting their status or their expertise.
Mhm.
I think it's nothing, it's so far from that. It's more about that I'm trying to take feedback and iterate to get to the best possible outcome. And by the way, I'm going to keep doing that while I'm in this position, until we reach our goal. I'm going to continue to iterate, get feedback, make it better, iterate, feedback, make it better. I think those are like the three things: dealing with ambiguity, evolving as the willingness to evolve as the role changes, and having a bias to learn.
When we've previously spoken, Michael, you've said that you also look for those that are a bit of a Swiss Army knife. What does a true Swiss Army knife hire look like in real life?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say I coined that term. One of the best managers I've ever had in my career coined that term to me. And I think someone coined it to her too. But ultimately, I think it's someone who can go deep where they need to, but also very broad and wide. There's like a constant context switching that you have in growth stage companies, going from like defining a new product development brief, the COGS build to evaluating a video asset the creative team has made. Like, and you're constantly context switching. And I think that's really important. It's a very draining aspect of a growth stage company, but I think it's very important to be comfortable being able to do that. And lastly, I think where you can interview for this specific thing is that, people who are energized by new problems, like, oh, when's the time you had to do something you had no idea how to do? Like,
Mm.
that's like some people get energy from that and they love it and they're excited to tell you about how they how to do a deep dive and watch all these YouTube videos about how to do something technical. That's great because it shows like they're willing to be the Swiss Army knife.
So let's say, for example, we've got a sort of VP, CMO type individual listening to this right now who's working in a similar DTC growth stage business, and historically maybe they've gone down that path of really just looking for people that are coming from a competitor or similar type industry, and they want to put this approach into practice to try and broaden the talent pool, what they're looking at. Do you have any advice for them around what questions are good to ask in an interview that will really test mindset so they can get a good steer on these candidates?
Yeah, quite honestly, one of this always throws people off. I had the first question I asked them, um, well, after I've feel like I've gotten to know them as a person,
Mm,
is what's your biggest accomplishment? And it's uh it's not a hard question. It's actually not even about the accomplishment, to be honest. It's actually listening for who they worked with to make this happen or how they got the work done. What setbacks did they deal with? The greatest accomplishment is really just the start of the conversation to me. I spend 20 minutes on this question of just trying to understand like what was the environment, who was their advocate for this, who was pushing back that they didn't think it was a good idea. How'd you get their buy-in? What feedback did you get when you were sharing this with people? And sometimes when they talk about like getting buy-in from someone, it's like, well, take me into the room. What did you say? Like, and I think just you can learn so much about someone's the way someone works with t other teams and people, just through like a very robust question that starts it in such a positive way. Like they're excited to talk about this accomplishment. Um, and then the other one that is always a staple for me is a time you've received feedback. Uh, and the question is simple, like, what's an example of a time you received feedback? And this is one that uh, 50% of people don't really have an answer to this. And that's because they think people will be giving them feedback. You don't need to ask for feedback.
mhm.
Rarely have I ever, in my 20 years of working, gotten unsolicited feedback. You always have to ask for feedback, frame the feedback.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work on this. Like, can you listen to this meeting and how I talk and present myself? Can you give me some feedback afterwards? And then are they asking for feedback? And then if yes, then are they internalizing the feedback? Are they implementing it in the future, how they think? So usually it becomes some follow-up questions around, well, yeah, I received this feedback. And so, well, what's the time when you implemented that in the way you thought or did something in the future? I think between those two things, you're getting a really good read on how the person works with team, ambiguity, setbacks, and also like, are they actually trying to be better at what they do?
Well, I'm glad you said about the accomplishments question, because I have to say on every call I have, whether it's for a live search or it's just my initial conversation with a candidate within my space, I love the question. Tell me about your biggest key achievement where you really help to move the needle. I think it can really open up and help understand a person and really what they've done, and how they present themselves as well, which I think is always important. And if anyone takes anything from this podcast, if you are interviewing with Maev or Michael Campi in the future, any other business, you now know what you need to prepare for. So take that on board. Again, I mean, you've built the team from 2, I think, to around 12. I think you said zero churn there, which is remarkable, especially in this type of climate. How but I know that those roles, like you said, that they're Swiss Army knives, and people need to, part of your hiring philosophy is people that can evolve and adapt as time goes on. But how do you, Michael, sort of support those individuals in your team as their role changes over time?
Yeah, great question. I think this is once you've made the great hire, how do you keep the great hire? Um, yeah, I think mindset can show up in retaining people too. And you've hired someone now that can grow with the company, grow, they can evolve as the position changes. So it's not a surprise to them that that's going to happen. That's what they want. They want to be in a position. So for there, then it's up to the manager and the person, the individual to uh, fulfill that promise, help and support and spend the time to understand where they're going in their career. This role at Maev is it's a step, in
Yep.
some form of their career. How can I make sure that I am giving them the right development, coaching, and advice, giving them the resources to develop where they want to be developed, and then in additionally making sure that the role that they have has the right amount of stretch to it, that they're doing things that they've never done before. I always like to think that with a high performer, they should be able to like do 66% of their job with their eyes closed, but 33% should be a stretch and like something that they've never done before and something that they should be learning from. And so, as the team grows and the business grows, making sure that you have a good dialogue with your team on where are you going in your career, what are your biggest strengths that you believe your strengths are, I believe your strengths are, the team around you believes your strengths are, and then what do you want to improve on and develop it, and how can we use those strengths to then give you stretch assignments or help you develop. There's a person on my team who when she first started, she was overseeing meta advertising. Now she's overseeing all growth marketing efforts. She has a team below her. She hadn't been a manager before. That's an example of a way in which we focused on her development and made sure she got the opportunities to grow and develop through the trajectory of the company.
Nice. And do you typically sort of keep in touch with team members sort of monthly or quarterly? How because there's always a bit of a, you want to be close to them, you want to know what's going on in their world and sort of make sure you're there at the right time, but you don't want to be there too much and then feel like you're always over them, right? So
Yeah, like with I have a philosophy that I've developed and tried to follow around how to use the time with the team. And the people who are direct reports to me have, more frequent time because we're spending, we have team meetings, we have a one-on-one every week. We have impromptu coffee walks, which are also just as useful as one-on-ones to me. And the difference there is that you're also making sure that you're helping remove roadblocks in their day to day. Like you're helping them from a literally the here and now perspective,
mhm.
and then making sure that you have the time to also work on the development and growth and coaching of the team in addition to that. So with the broader team, I similarly have every other week or every month we'll meet with them really as much as they want to, and as much as they engage in wanting to have this dialogue around development and growth with me. But I make sure that I have time with every member of the team. Some people we just go grab lunch some days. Some, one employee we have in the Northeast, we meet and just talk about what's going on, what's going really well, where are you seeing challenges, what can I do to help you? And that's essentially how I approach it is I do let them kind of drive uh, where they want me to zoom in on whether it's like their work or their development. But it's very important to me to make sure that that time is carved out in my schedule. So it's not something that it's like tacked on to work I have to do. It feels like it's part of my job when it's when there's a system or a schedule involved in having those touch points.
So do you have a mixture of your team sort of hybrid? Because you guys are in Austin. So is it a mixture of some people in Austin and then some people that are working sort of fully remote across the US, or is everyone sort of close by to Austin?
Yeah, mostly Austin. We have three employees are in the north in New York area. So, but yeah, like that's where we make sure there's a small group of people in New York. So there's a
Right.
cross-functional slice in New York. So we make sure that they have just as much, in-person time, like team building events in New York as we do in Austin. And we also make sure that they have the opportunity to come to Austin once a quarter for no agenda. It's just like there's no like a meeting that needs to happen. It's just we come
Sure.
to
Yeah.
Austin, spend time with the team, do your work in Austin. If there's something specific we can tackle because we're in person, that's great. But also just gives them the opportunity to grab lunch with someone in finance who they don't
Yeah.
interact with day to day. And I think that's really important in retaining people who are hybrid because it makes sure that they still feel connected to the broader company when we have such a lion's share of our employees in Austin.
I mean, it's a massive topic at the moment, right? In terms of companies thinking about, okay, we've been remote for a while or been hybrid. Do we bring people back into the office more? I mean, your position better than most, having both sides of the fence. From your perspective as a hiring manager of people or manager of people, do you do you prefer the hybrid approach? Do you feel that the remote sort of aspect works, or
I like thinking about the team and where they're at and what can make them successful. So some roles when we're hiring, we believe that person should be based in Austin,
yeah.
certain reasons, and sometimes it's related to how much of their work is going to be cross-functional, where they're at in their career. Like I think potentially it's more difficult for someone really early in their career to be working remotely
Hmm.
full time, and so we think about that across that criteria, and there's always the question when we post a job about, okay, is this the Austin base? Is it remote? Is it in New York? So they're around other people. And a lot of times I think we just opt for the hybrid environment where they're in New York or Austin because they can have the close connection FaceTime. Fully remote has been hired because mostly because we're so specific on what we're looking for. We may be constrained by the geographic side
Yeah.
of things. And yeah, a great example of that is the person we're talking about who we hired to run our chewy business because we were looking for a very specific type of person with some specific experience. And we started with Austin, but ultimately needed to open it up to get more candidates in the pool. But always starting with hybrid or in person is our goal.
Yeah, it's such I mean, it's such an interesting topic, and I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong. I love remote first companies that I work with because it opens the pool of talent vastly. But
Mhm.
at the same time, and I was even speaking to my colleague about this earlier, if we had started in recruitment many years ago and we'd done it in COVID where everyone was working from home, the limited knowledge and it was those conversations that you just don't get by not working with other team members, right? It's so important, especially early on in your career. I think it's so important for your development.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I worked on a fully remote environment during COVID as well. COVID like necessitated us to close our office and go fully remote, and there were a lot of benefits of that too. That make it really important for people in certain stages to, like people who just are unable to relocate or potentially that the remote gives them flexibility and doing things they need to do in their home to take care of their family. Like these are very important things. And I think that I've seen success in person to hybrid to remote. Um, and I think that that what I've seen is that you can build a really strong team culture in any environment as well.
Mhm. No, I agree. I think it's more about just having an adult approach to it as well. I think
Mhm.
that's the way you need to approach it. So,
Yeah.
look, I wanted to ask you a quick question, just from I guess from a founder's perspective, or let's say I was a hiring manager. I'm making my first sort of 3 to 5 hires. I'm working in a D2C growth stage business. What should I care about most when I'm bringing candidates in? What should I be looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things that about working with founders, like you have to have a low ego. That's very important. But you also have to have very high conviction because this business is not a job to them. This is like a vision of what the future looks like, and this business is playing a role in changing something, whether it's changing the way people think about what they should be feeding their dog food or their dogs. Um, and you have to have very high conviction to make sure that you're also heard when you need to be heard. And
Mhm.
high conviction just means saying like, I believe we should do this for these reasons. What do you think? Getting feedback, getting it into the right language, agreeing on that language, getting it through the founder's system of thinking. You really need to be the person that pushes that. If you took like a one-page marketing plan to them and you don't hear anything and you say, oh great, didn't hear any feedback, we're good to go. That's not the case. You have to make sure that they fully understand and have provided the right input, but you need to really be the driver of that. And so I think when we look for people who have that very low ego, but also like when they have an idea or strategy that they've demonstrated really high conviction and been able to, you know, take the time, build trust, get feedback, get the buy-in on that to make it successful. I also think outside of the roles you're looking for, hire people who make you better at decision making.
Yep.
Usually when you're a small team, founder-led company, you've got a couple people on the management team. Don't think of them as, hey, I got Michael on the team. He's the marketing person, so I'll just ask him the questions about marketing. Like leverage the experience of those around you and to create a very cohesive management team. So when that's where you're like optimizing your hire for the slope of the company, not like exactly where you are today. So that's always the advice I give people when they're thinking about working at founder-led companies.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Um, Michael, going to finish up in a minute, but what's the one rule that you live by when hiring?
The rule I live by when hiring, that is a great question. Hire people who you trust to do your job someday.
I like that. I like that. I like that a lot. Michael, again, pleasure to have you on. I know how busy you are, and yeah, look, I think there's some fantastic insight that you've shared with us today. For people that sort of want to keep in touch or just follow what you're up to and Maev and see what's going on, what's the best way to keep in touch and follow you?
Yeah, I'm not the most active on LinkedIn, but always welcome, and active in terms of posting stuff, but always open to connect there, learn more about you and the challenge, any challenges you're having, anything I can do to help you. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn, but it's Michael Campi. And then if you want to learn more about Maev too, and you have a dog, definitely check it out. It is seriously it's the best food for your dog out there, in my opinion, in my very enthusiastic opinion. And our site is meetmaev.com, MEETMAEV.
Brilliant. All right. Well, Michael, really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on.